You are listening to the Two and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
What about dumpster fire?
I think that's pretty insulting.
Okay, how much?
I don't know. I feel like every time we insult them, we have to put like $2 into this hat and then donate it to a Montreal charity or something like that.
I got a mortgage now.
Grab some poutine and a double-double. It's time for the Two and Out CFL podcast.
Now they have to kick it out, and they do!
Every week, Travis Currah.
Does anybody still care about this podcast?
And Brazilian Ty.
Hunters are people, too.
Talk fantasy football, bring you the latest in CFL news, and sprinkle in a little bit of nonsense.
Are you kidding? This is unbelievable!
Ready, set, hunt!
Ooh, Brazilian Ty is back this week, but Ty, why don't you say a couple words?
Testing 1, 2.
We're week 2's here, but we're just, I don't know, a few days removed from that bachelor party our buddy in Lloydminster over the weekend, and you are a lot worse for the wear than I am, I think.
Yeah, I am now going to be dry until the wedding.
Are you serious?
I am 100% serious.
This is not coming until the end of July. What was your longest dry spell before that? Birth until your first drink?
No, I was in camp. I was in a dry camp for 3.5 months.
And that's your longest dry spell ever?
Maybe.
Well, I'm breaking it right now. I don't know if you could hear that.
Oh, I did, and I'm not even in the least jealous because I've got so much water right now that I should be well hydrated.
In the Huddle with Currah and Ty on the Two and Out podcast.
All right, before we start talking about the games in week 2, I guess we should mention things continue to move along with Maritime Football Limited. It looks like they're going to be meeting with Halifax City Council. The commissioner and these cats have come up with a 3-step program to get an Atlantic team on the field. I'm getting more and more hopeful for this to happen every day.
Oh, absolutely. And not only that, then we'll have 10 teams, 5 in each division.
Yeah.
A bit of balance, and maybe we could just scrap the division format altogether.
Yeah, we'll see if they ever do scrap the division format. I am a sucker for East-West. I totally am. So the Grey Cup last year, Argos and Ticats, or not Argos and Ticats, Argos and Stampeders, I was happy to have it East-West instead of an all-West Grey Cup, but maybe they do change it with the 10th. I have a hunch that means they keep things the same.
Yeah, but then it makes the regular season basically just a round robin.
Yeah, it kind of does.
And if you're going to do that, you might as well just scrap the divisions because you're going to play everybody twice. So unless they're going to change the schedule, which I don't see, and you only play everybody in the other division once and you play everybody in your division more, which I don't think will ever happen. It's just, I don't know. The division seemed pointless to me at that point.
Let's talk about the streaker in Vancouver. I didn't think we would have to talk about it anymore, but he gets fined $115, and now it looks like he's hired a law firm from Toronto. I kind of wonder if this law firm hit him up and is trying to get some publicity for themselves. But apparently, I've read that it's kind of a deal where this guy doesn't even pay unless he gets some kind of cash out of this. But I really hope the judge laughs at him here.
I hope that the judge increases the amount of money he's got to pay.
Could you imagine if it just backfired?
It'd be the best. It would be the best thing that could happen.
I thought 115 was pretty cheap.
Well, okay, $115 plus, getting lit up on national TV.
Yeah, that's true.
Concussion, that's a lot to pay. But I could care less how hurt he is.
Maybe the hit factored into the fine. Or the injury, maybe.
It's like a suspension, right? The player wasn't hurt, so the suspension can only be this long.
But I just got myself a photo radar ticket, was $115, so come on.
I have a photo radar ticket in Alberta that I'm not paying, so that's. I guess you're an Alberta resident. You have to pay them.
Yeah, and it was in Alberta. How long have you had that ticket?
I shouldn't say.
No, come on.
2013, the year I coached hockey.
That is beautiful.
I don't even own that truck anymore.
Oh, I think you're off the hook now.
I would hope so. Till I get one of those phone calls from the CRA.
Yeah, they're going to arrest you. Show up to your seats at Commonwealth Stadium this Friday.
Good thing I won't be there.
Let's talk about this week's games in Week 2.
Join 2 and Out for CFL Fantasy and CFL Pick'em and show Currah and Ty what you got.
They are who we thought they were.
Just click cflfantasy.tsn.ca.
Enough from talking about it. There has to be consequences.
And pick'em.cfl.ca.
All right, we start in Ottawa for Thursday night football. The RedBlacks are, 2.5-point favorites over the Saskatchewan Roughriders. It doesn't get much closer than these two teams were last year. They split the series 1-1, and the total points for each team was 50 apiece. So things are a little bit crazy. Let's start with the Riders. So Monday on the podcast, I basically said, hey, it looks like we made out of Week 1 without any big injuries, but rookie defensive back Nick Marshall, who had a great game for the Riders last week, had the game-winning pick 6 off of Ricky Ray, has been placed on the 6-game injured list. That means Duron Carter is going to be playing defense, and it looks like no offense tonight against Ottawa.
Do you remember when I said that depth was a problem, not only Canadian depth, but depth in general was a problem on this team?
Yes, I remember that.
So now our best receiver is going to play DB.
Oh, I don't like that at all.
I don't like it at all. Like that. Maybe we should have they should have addressed that issue in the offseason.
So Jones must think that the drop-off from Duron Carter to Shaq Evans, who's going to be getting his first start at wide receiver, is not as great as the drop-off from Nick Marshall to another backup DB. And if you look at the depth chart that the Riders already put out, there are no defensive backups at all, but there's like 10 defensive linemen. So if there's...
And enough safeties to fill a small band.
So if there is enough middle linebackers too. So if there is any sort of injury against Ottawa, it's going to be interesting how things shake out.
Yeah, it's not going to be pretty if somebody on that defense goes down and they can't be replaced, or they get replaced with somebody who's going to be out of position. And, if that does happen, Trevor Harris is going to be able to take advantage.
So, without Carter on offense, how much do you think Naaman Roosevelt or Caleb Hawley are going to benefit this week?
I think they're going to get a lot more targets. You're losing your number one receiver, so somebody's got to fill that role. I'm not saying Shaq Evans can't do it, but these guys have had way more reps with the first team. Flowers is going to obviously feel more comfortable with them, so I could see them having a lot of targets. And
Roosevelt is kind of a target monster as it is, so without Carter there, he might even see even more. So I like the idea of having either of those receivers on your team this week.
It's probably not a bad idea. However, that being said, one thing goes wrong on that Saskatchewan O-line, and the whole game is a mess. So I don't know. It's tough to pick Riders at this point. I kind of want to wait and see what the O-line actually is. I know it was only one game, but still, it's a long ways from where I think it should be.
It's also hard to kind of compare what their players did last year because they were in completely different seasons. Our teams, Caleros only played one game against the RedBlacks in the last 3 years. Is that right?
That's all I could find. Yep, and he injuries, and then he got pulled last year, and it wasn't good. He only had 8.38 points in that one game. So I mean, you don't really know what you're going to get. You could get his average, which is up around, I think, 16 or 17 points, which isn't the worst, but that being said, if he has a game like he did the last time he played Ottawa, it won't be pretty.
You have to assume that Messam will have a better game this week. Last week, 21 carries. Just about every other week, that's going to get your running back well over 100 yards. But, man, he didn't even crack 80 on the ground last year against Toronto. If they're going to give him that many carries again this week, I assume it's going to be a lot better than 70-some yards. But this also might be the last week to take advantage of Messam getting that many carries because it's also the last week of Marcus Thigpen's suspension.
True. That being said, Messam against Ottawa averages just under 15 points, and his average for the last 2 years in one game is 14 and a quarter. So he doesn't play that much better against the RedBlacks as he does against the rest of the league. But 15 points, not too bad for your running back. Roosevelt, like we were talking about receivers earlier, Roosevelt averages 19 against Ottawa. Averages 16.8 against the rest of the league. Caleb Hawley hasn't played a lot against Ottawa, only averaged 5.6, 10.2 average for points against everybody else. There is some guys here that could have the opportunity to have a big game. We just don't know what that is going to be against the RedBlacks. And even Hawley's only at 10.2. He hasn't got the fantasy numbers that Roosevelt and Carter have had the last couple of years.
I think if you want to play the Rider defense this week, I don't have a problem with that at all. The RedBlacks are going to have their hands full with the Rider defensive line. They have a rookie that was just drafted this year being forced to start at left guard in Mark Corte. Nolan McMillan is hurt. Jason Lazone-Seguin is also hurt. He's on the 6-game injured list. This means that Charleston Hughes is going to be matched up against Evan Johnson at right tackle. I think it's not crazy to think that after 2 weeks, Charleston Hughes has 6 sacks.
Yeah, that is a distinct possibility. It wouldn't surprise me one bit. This guy, he's at 102. He's the 11th player to ever get to 100 sacks. And he's still playing at a level that is just dumbfounding at his age to me. I don't want to be rude, but you usually see guys his age start to decline, and I didn't see that last week.
Well, Odell Willis said defensive ends seem to get better with age, and we're kind of in an era right now. We've got maybe 3 of the greatest D linemen to ever play in the CFL, and I think that's a fair statement. Charleston Hughes, we have John Bowman, we have Odell Willis, who, if he makes it to 100 sacks, he needs, I think, 12 more to get there. He would be the youngest to ever do it in CFL history. We're watching some all-time greats right now.
Oh, absolutely. And with Odell saying, some guys get better with age, you're matched up against the same guy every play. You start to learn his tendencies, and every player has a tell. And if you can find his tell before he finds yours, you're going to be able to exploit it. And the longer you play, the easier that is for you. And the experience factor is huge when it comes to playing defensive end.
As for Ottawa, Noel Thomas Jr. from Connecticut gets his first start at wide receiver, and it looks like just about every Ottawa offensive player has had pretty nice games against Saskatchewan in the past.
Yeah, it hasn't been too bad. Deontay Spencer is the lowest out of your top players for Ottawa. They're going to play at 10.9. Trevor Harris right around that 16.4. Averages 17 against the rest of the league. William Powell 16.5. He the way he runs the ball is punishing, and he just seems to show up against the right. He's a little bit above his normal output, but it's still above. 16.5 points is a lot. Ellingson at 13.9, Sinop at 16.4 against Saskatchewan. These guys are able to put up big numbers against the Riders, and the Riders' D the last couple of years hasn't been the greatest. So those numbers might be a little inflated, but we'll see what happens now with Carter playing and no backups. That if something does happen, Harris is going to be able to exploit it.
I love William Powell, but judging by what the Riders did to James Wilder Jr. last week, I'm not sure if I like that pick. And It looks like it's going to be Deontay Spencer lined up against Duron Carter. Is that a matchup Ottawa and maybe fantasy players want to exploit? Obviously, Duron has the height advantage on that one. And I think last year when he played corner, I don't think we really saw Breaux or anybody really pick on Duron all that much. I would like to see him get tested because he's going to be lined up against Spencer and Ellingson. These are top-notch guys in the CFL, and it's a real test for Duron. I would put money on Spencer in this one.
I think Spencer would fly right past him. It could be some deep balls for Spencer if Carter can't keep up.
I wouldn't pick their defense in this game.
They average 8.5 against Saskatchewan.
Well, and you know what? This might be the most physical game of the week.
Oh, absolutely.
Kyrie Bear. The Ottawa defense now is going to have some hard hitters than the Riders do. But who do you pick to win?
I am taking the RedBlacks. Saskatchewan only averages 21.1 points on the road in the last couple of years. Ottawa averages 27.1 at home. So I got to go with the RedBlacks. You're
going to notice a trend in my picks this week. I am going Riders to start things off. We move to.
I think I know your next three picks.
Yeah, I think you do. Well, we'll see what trend you think I'm going with here.
Okay.
Winnipeg, 2-point favorites over Montreal. Which what? How is that a thing?
Take that bet right now while it's still there.
When I look at these stats, I realize how much parity there is in the league. Winnipeg had a big last-minute comeback against the Alouettes last summer, which it almost took the sails out of the Alouettes for the rest of the season. They were scrappy during the summer, and then wheels just fell off in about August. But the Bombers swept the season series 2-0 last year. They outscored Montreal by 4 points. And this game is actually going to be Winnipeg's first game against Drew Willie as an opposing starting quarterback since they traded him. It almost seems like an eternity since he's been traded, so this is kind of crazy.
I forgot that he was even in Winnipeg.
Oh, yeah. Well, there was Willie Mania. It was Willie Peg for a while.
And then he went to Toronto, and I just kind of lost track of him after then because, I mean, you can only watch a guy throw interceptions so many times.
Poor Willie. Some Bomber news, though. They signed Mitchell Gale. Alex Ross came out of Thursday's game with a bit of an injury, so they needed some insurance here. Kind of like Jeff Matthews in Montreal last week. Matthew Schultz gets hurt, so they bring in Matthews. But Gale has been with the Riders, Argos, Stamps, Ticats, and Lions in the past 5 seasons. He's been all over the place. Some Riders fans, they kind of have a love affair with Mitchell Gale. I don't see it, but could he pull off CFL bingo? It's a lot less, how do I put it, well done than Kevin Glenn's career, but...
I know why they were in love with Mitchell Gale in Saskatchewan, because he was a backup quarterback.
That's true.
If you're a backup quarterback, everybody loves you. Just watch Blue Mountain State and you'll get it.
Mo Leggett was back practicing with the first team. He could see limited action in this one. I know he was returning kicks at Wednesday's practice after the Achilles injury last year. So Mo Leggett might be back on the field for the Bombers, and that is a big one. Part of me, I'm the biggest Chris Streveler fan on the planet. Outside of Winnipeg, he had 18.1 points last week against Edmonton. I actually think to start the season, Montreal's defense might give him more trouble this week.
That's a possibility. It's early in the year. You look at the Owls defense last couple of years has been really good to start, and then it just implodes.
Yeah.
So the matchup this week might be a little tough. They're going to have film on him now, or a lot more film, so they could adjust a little more, and make those adjustments and maybe shut down one aspect of his game. But I mean, he proved that if he didn't have a lane to run, that he could throw it, and if he couldn't throw it, he could find a lane to run. So he's going to be pretty hard to stop, I think. It
is going to be another scrappy game. We might be seeing Keaton LaFrance making his Bomber debut this week, but I do like myself some Andrew Harris again.
So 22.8 points in the last 2 years against Montreal. Like, is that any good?
It's pretty good.
It's 5 points over his average.
Wow.
So, like, he puts up big numbers against Montreal. Darvin Adams right at his average, 16.8 against Montreal. Wesson Dressler, 4.8. Not that great, but, I mean, that's limited action with his injuries and everything. Nick Dembski right at 9. Bowman at 15.9, which is right at his average. So, I mean, the offense has an opportunity if Montreal's defense isn't up to par to put up some big numbers.
Dressler had 8 targets last week. Darius Bowman had, I believe it was 3, but he had
3 targets, no catches.
No catches. Do you see a rebound for him?
Oh, I think so. I think he's going to come out with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder and try to prove that, he's still – I don't think anybody said that he's not, a top echelon receiver in this league, but he wants to prove it, even though it's he doesn't have Mike Riley. So he's got to prove that he can do it with any quarterback.
Darvin Adams, he's a consistent guy, and I think he might do something this week too.
Oh, it's a distinct possibility. This is his average, is 16.7 against everybody else in the league, and he averages 16.8 against Montreal. So there's a chance, and he's able to come back to the ball just as good as anybody else. We saw it last week. If it's an underthrow or if he needs to scramble for his quarterback, he racks up numbers. It seems week in, week out when he's got a consistent quarterback throwing him the ball. So maybe a little more confidence in his quarterback this week and a little more familiarity could bode well for Darvin Adams.
As for Montreal, I got a bit of a challenge for you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's create our own Montreal Swear Jar where, we only say positive things about the Als. Kind of like you can say they didn't have a good game, but you can't say they're an absolute joke and an embarrassment to the CFL and things like that.
What about dumpster fire?
I think that's pretty insulting.
Okay, how much?
I don't know. I feel like every time we insult them, we have to put $2 into this hat and then donate it to a Montreal charity or something like that.
I got a mortgage now, man. What are you doing to me?
Hey, you're the bankroll of the podcast. You always have been.
I don't know how that's going to go now. I gotta donate to a swear jar.
The Montreal Swear Jar. Do you accept? Oh, is that first one?
Yeah, put a toonie in there.
Okay. Also in Montreal, you can now buy tickets to only watch the fourth quarter. It costs $10. This is we've never seen anything like this.
So you start a swear jar where I can only say positive things about the Als, and then say that. This only happens in junior hockey, where if you show up for the third period, there's nobody working the door anymore.
Yeah, so you just show up.
Yeah. And you better hope that you're there before the concession closes so you can get a rink burger.
Yeah, there's that fine line where, doors are open and the concession's open, and you got to get there at the right time.
How do they so are these going to be tickets that weren't sold, or is this going to be a set amount of tickets in a certain area?
It's going to be something like 3 days before the game. If these tickets aren't sold, you kind of register on their website, and if any fourth quarter tickets are available, they're going to send you an email, and then, you can buy these tickets, and it's going to be valid starting in the third quarter.
So I guess you just find a bar close and watch the first half and then walk over.
Yeah, I guess.
It's not terrible.
It's outside the box, man. I give them that.
Yeah, that is true. That they're just trying to put butts in the seats. I get it. It's just weird that you only get to watch one quarter of football.
Yeah, you feel like
$10. I mean, you show up to fourth quarter, you're not going to be able to get booze, so you're paying this $10 to literally just watch football.
Yeah, I feel like,
and it's Alouette football. Put another $2 in.
We need to hire an intern to count this thing. So Drew Willie has never started a game against his old team, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, or since being traded anyway, so we don't really have anything there. But I like Tyrell Sutton this week. If you want to start him, it's clear that the offense is going to be circled around him. He had 15 carries last week, and that's probably exactly, if not more, than what he's going to get this week. Mike Sherman comes from the NFL. Those guys are running 45 times a week, so they're going to do more of that for Tyrell Sutton. I actually feel like the Alouettes started last week against BC with some real big plays, and I think the Bombers are kind of susceptible to that. I don't know if they're smart enough to game plan for that, but last week against BC, Chris Williams had some big plays, and it's like they've already found a way to use him more than BC did all of last season. So there might be some opportunities here for some big plays for the Alouettes.
And especially against the Winnipeg defense run by Richie Hall, it's bend, don't break.
Yeah.
You can give up those big plays, but, inside that 15, 10-yard line, that's where you shut them down and hold them off to a field goal. He might not get a lot of touchdowns, but you'll get a lot of yards. There is opportunity for points there, and especially with it being PPR now, you get those extra points just for catches. So, Cunningham at 17.2 and Ernest Jackson 18.1, those numbers don't look bad. Those are against Winnipeg, but if Drew Willie is 8.1 average per game self, they're not going to put those numbers up. So you got to tread carefully, but Winnipeg's defense, like I said, like you said, is susceptible to big plays. So there's that chance. And if they're able to break one or two, that could totally turn the game around at that point.
I actually don't mind starting either defense in this game either.
No, Winnipeg's defense at 8.3, Montreal's at 6.3, versus each other. So that's not terrible. Winnipeg is going to run you a little bit. They're just over 5,000. Yeah,
they're pricey.
So it's a little pricey, but if they can get between 8 and 11 points out of your defense, it's not a bad week.
Who are you picking to win?
Got to go with the Bombers. They average 27.1 on the road. Montreal allows just under 30 at home.
I got Bombers too. Andrew Harris, that offensive line, I think their showing against Edmonton last week was pretty wild. They probably should have won that one, but they got a good chance this week against Montreal, so I'm going Winnipeg. You still got my trend there? I
think so. I have two ideas now.
Okay, the Eskimos, 7-point favorites over the Tiger Cats. They swept the series with Hamilton last year, including one that ended like on the last play of the game with Caleros bombing it into the end zone. I think it ended up getting dropped by Mike Jones, and Tiger Cats probably should have won that one. But they only outscored Hamilton by 8 points. The Tiger Cats, though, have won 3 of their last 5 at Commonwealth Stadium. We do have some...
Including that huge comeback.
Yes, including that big second-half comeback. I think Flo Rida was at the stadium that week.
Yes, he was. I believe that was even during Klondike days.
Yeah, it was. It was during the fair, man.
To quote Bob Cole, everything was happening.
Everything was. So, some Eskimo news. Travis Bond finds a job in Edmonton. Their left tackle, Tommy Draheim, didn't practice on Monday. So, the Esks are trying to show up their depth there a little bit. Some are speculating that Bond might play tackle. I don't know if I really like the idea of that. He's been interior his entire CFL career, other than maybe some spot duty here and there. But the Eskies have Adam Konar, defensive tackle Mike Moore, Draheim, Jameel Smith, all hurt. Vidal Hazelton is actually doubtful for Friday. Some good news, Aaron Grimes and Forrest Hightower are back in the secondary for this week, but it looks like a big repeat of last year when it comes to injuries. Do you think the Lightning delay had anything to do with it? Some are saying, it's just coincidence, but for 5 hours, almost 6 hours, it's pretty hard to stay warm and stay loose as an athlete.
I've never stretched before playing slow pitch or baseball, and I've never pulled anything.
Dude,
so I don't buy it.
Dude. Are you playing CFL football?
I'm playing Senior A baseball.
I will say that I pulled an oblique playing slow pitch a few years ago. That sucks. I didn't know I had an oblique until I heard it.
Well, they say that large men can't really pull their oblique because there's no pressure on it. That's why, like, you see guys like Brett Laurie who are jacked to the nines and swinging way too hard always seem to have hurt their back. So I find it weird that you actually pulled an oblique.
Well, I did, man. And
that's impressive.
Let me tell you, it does not feel good.
Does it feel as good as my sunburn?
Oh, yeah, those don't feel good either. Some more Eskimo news. It has to be talked about, but they put Terrell Owens. Yeah, NFL legend. I think we can call him a legend. Terrell Owens on their negotiation list. Now, he's 44 years old. There was a video he posted online of running a 4.440. And I think there's a couple factors with that. It looked like he had his buddies using his stopwatch. So that's not an official time, but either way, it did look pretty impressive. Another thing, yes, I know Terrell Owens has always taken pride in his shape and things like that, but he hasn't taken part in any drug testing pool for the last few years since he has played, so who knows if he's clean. I don't want to accuse the guy or anything like that, but we don't know if he's clean at all. I guess he's been running routes, but can he run routes an entire game? To run 40 yards once is one thing, but to get back after a 20-second play clock and do it again is another thing. I put the odds at about 10% that he will be with the Edmonton Eskimos at all, ever, but it kind of shocks me that the Eskimos did this. This doesn't seem like an Eskimo thing to do at all. Part of me, the first thing I thought when I saw it, I wondered if they were going to use it as trade bait with like Montreal or something.
What are they going to get from Montreal? Okay, that's another toonie. Owens is literally the only player on planet Earth that could get me to buy a Dallas Cowboys jersey, and I did it.
You did it!
So, I mean, the guy, like you said, is a legend. Does this mean that they know something about some of their receivers that maybe they're not letting on, and they're maybe looking for options?
I don't know.
I would hate to speculate that that's what it is, because, I mean, the guy, we don't know if he's in football shape. We don't know when he'd be ready to play, but maybe they're just exercising some options here and, having him ready. Or maybe not having him ready, but I mean, when he is ready, if he doesn't get a lot of NFL offers, then they'll have first shot at him.
It's weird because I don't think that the Esks are a team that really needs to push tickets or make a splash or anything like that, and they do have some depth in the receiving core. So,
yeah, it's not very Esk-like, like you said. Like, they don't do a lot of things just for show.
Yeah.
So yeah, I find it weird, but at the same time, I kind of hope it works out for like at least one game.
Yeah, I would like to see it. I'm a sucker for that. I kind of would like Owens and Carter on the same team. I would like to see some of those celebrations.
So much popcorn.
But this game, I think, is going to be a battle. Mike Riley's Mike Riley. He will get it done. But C.J. Gable has never played a game against his old team, the Tiger Cats.
Well, the Edmonton Eskimos are only his second team, so it'll be a little hard. But he does average 13.2. Like I said, those numbers are going to come up. That's up from 11 points, whatever it was last week. So, I mean, he added 2 points to his average just in 1 week. If you can fit him on, it might not be the worst idea. Those numbers are a little deceiving right now. They'll eventually come out and plateau, and we'll find out what he actually is as a fantasy option.
Darrell Walker seems to light up the Tiger Cats.
29.5 point average against Hamilton the last 2 years.
Wow.
Not a bad pick.
So he had double-digit targets last week. Duke Williams also had double-digit targets. Man, he had 4 catches on 11 targets. You got to assume that's going to correct itself over the course of a season, and they might be without Vidal Hazelton. So don't pick him, and even if he's in, he might be limited. So be careful there.
Did you notice that none of Duke Williams' targets had both of his feet on the ground?
Oh, yeah. Riley was throwing high on him.
That's because he goes up and gets them.
He does. I don't think it was by design, but...
No, but that's what we saw last year was everything that was a little too high, he would go up and get. I don't know if this is an adjustment period because it's the start of the year, but maybe Mike knows that he can go up and get those, kind of treat it like a 50-50 ball almost, but just knowing that Duke's going to be the one to come down with it. Just like every time you watch, like how do you not catch that? Like, just or how do you throw that ball there? Like it just seemed like they were a little off. Like the two, like Mike Riley and Duke Williams, are a little out of sync last week.
Yeah, they were. It looks like defensive back Delvin Breaux will be returning to the Tiger Cats. So the Breaux show could be back. He's still only 28. He's been with the New Orleans Saints since 2015, but things have not gone his way as far as injuries go. So before he ever showed up to Hamilton, he had a neck surgery. Now, he's broken his fibula twice in the last 2 years, including a misdiagnosis last year where 2 Saints doctors thought he only had a leg contusion, so they fired him over that. Damon Washington gets released after the signing, and Breaux was already practicing as of Tuesday. Now, the money is crazy here. He's getting paid $200K. I don't think we've ever seen that for a defensive back. That is a high-paid defensive back, and a lot of people are excited about this. I know that Glanville wants to play man-to-man in Hamilton. Breaux can, without a doubt, play man-to-man if he's healthy. I'm very hesitant to think he's going to be his old self here, but he is still only 28 years old. He's got a lot of football left, and if he stays healthy and he's somehow his old self, this is a big signing for the Tiger Cats. He was practicing on Tuesday, and man-to-man, he can just walk in and say, hey, go cover that guy. If he's in game shape, he doesn't need to learn any complicated schemes or anything like that. Just get out there and cover. It'll be interesting if he plays. I'm kind of doubting he is, but after all the injuries this guy's gone through and he's still playing, maybe I should stop doubting Delvin Breaux. But if he is in any sort of his old self, this Hamilton signing is massive.
Oh, it's huge for Hamilton. And like you said, what they're paying him, he's going to be in the lineup sooner rather than later. If it's not this week, it'll be next week.
It's a lot of money.
Right? Like there's that money counting against your cap. He's going to be in the lineup. And like you said, Glanville wants to play man-to-man. You're outside guys. Well, there you go. There's your guy. Take him, run with it.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do. Make it so he does not catch the ball. That is your one and only job. And, there are going to be times when they play zone. You're not going to play man-to-man every single down. Football doesn't work like that. But, I mean, those adjustments can be made as needed through practice, or if it means he's got to come out for a down or something like that. But yeah, $200,000 allegedly that he's going to be in the game sooner rather than later.
Jeremiah Mazzoli has not averaged double digits against the Eskimos in the last little while, but he hasn't been a starting quarterback for a while. So the numbers have skewed a little bit, but he averages 9.1 points against the Esks. Tasker, 17.1. Brandon Banks, 9. But, again, after Labor Day, it was a different Brandon Banks last year, and he was not that same Brandon Banks last week against Calgary. So we'll see if it was just an anomaly from a season ago, but we'll see if he can do it again against the Eskimos. And Jalen Saunders averages 13.5 points against the Eskimos. This kid has been something else since coming onto the scene. He had 11 targets last week, 7 catches for 118 yards. I am rolling with him.
8 catches. Lawrence took one away from him on the sideline.
Simone, what are you doing? So I like Jalen this week. I like the Tiger Cats offense this week. I would not go with a running back, though. Last week, it almost seemed like it was Kent Austin coaching the team again. They had 12 carries between Mercer Timmis, Nikita Whitlock, Sean Thomas Erlington is the other kid who actually looked okay, but they did not run the ball. So it kind of seems like they don't trust any of those running backs. So unless John White is on the field and until Alex Green is back on the field, they might not be running the ball all that much.
No, and like you said, the trust factor is going to be huge. These guys haven't got a lot of playing time in the last couple of years, or like at all. Them being younger, so it's really hard for a guy to come in and just assume a guy like Alex Green. Alex Green hasn't been bad.
No.
So when he's healthy, he's a viable starting running back in this league. Brandon Banks is the way Edmonton's special teams cover right now is. Brandon Banks is almost a must start.
But Banks is not returning kicks.
I know, and I think at some point he will be again.
I'd hope so, because he was one of the most exciting players in the game.
And if the coaches watched that game last week, Edmonton-Winnipeg, I'd be putting Brandon Banks in a returner. Because it gets embarrassing after a while for that special teams cover. It's not good.
So last week it was Frankie Williams on punt returns, Jackson Bennett and Sean Thomas Erlington, the running back, on kickoff returns. I would like to see Banks back there a few more times. Who are you picking to win this one?
I got to take Edmonton. They average 30.3 at home. Hamilton allows 27.9. They don't score a lot on the road as of right now. So I got to take the Eskimos. They're at home. It's their home opener. I think it's the Eskimos' year. They're hosting the Grey Cup. I think they're going to come up flying.
I think the Tiger Cats spoil the home opener.
You're picking all away teams.
Yeah, I am picking all away teams, so I spoil the last one. But I think the Tiger Cats got a good shot at spoiling the home opener this Friday, and it's probably my pick for Game of the Week, actually. The Tiger Cats were right in it last week against Calgary until the very end, and I think Jeremiah Mazzoli is he's feeling the pressure of Johnny Football on his back. He needs to get some wins here in the first few weeks, and I think it can happen this Friday against the Eskimos. The Stampeders, 3.5-point favorites over the defending Grey Cup champions, the Toronto Argonauts. Yeah, they handled Toronto 2-0 last year when it didn't matter. Not in the Grey Cup, though. Calgary outscored Toronto 64-31 during the regular season. Now, the Stamps look like they're going to be without Mark and Michelle this weekend. Lamar Durant could return. He could return to the lineup, so watch for that. Don Jackson had his first start at running back last week, 14.7 points. He had a great week, and it kind of looks like, Terry Williams is going to be getting some carries at running back for the Stampeders. He's also returning kicks, so he's kind of busy with that. And any $3,000 running back I am going to take, especially when they're on the Calgary Stampeders. So give me some Don Jackson this week.
Oh, absolutely. I think the way they run their offense is so balanced, and it's even shown in their passing game because they never seem to have a guy. Well, every week it seems to be a new guy that has a standout week. So the way their offense is set up, it's set up for success for a running back for sure.
It's hard to pick a receiver. You just got to get the right receiver the right week for the Calgary Stampeders. But Tavares Daniels averages over 24 points against the Argos, and Kamar Jordan over 18 points against the Argos. Eric Rogers might be more involved this week, but pick your poison when it comes to a Calgary Stampeders receiver. I went with Daniels last week. He had 2 catches for 20 yards. I know he's better than that. I have Kamar Jordan this week, which means it's probably going to be Tavares Daniels if you go that way. And I've got the Stampeder defense in my lineup. The Stamps are consistent week to week. Bo wasn't the best last week, but there was a couple long plays. If they connected on that line looks a whole lot different maybe he does do better this week in Toronto.
Oh, that's a distinct possibility. Toronto's defense isn't the greatest, and we know what Bo Levi can do. That being said, last week was the epitome of Bo Levi Mitchell. Not throwing quite 50%. Not throwing for huge yards, but getting the job done. And again, he's over 50 wins as a starter. Like this guy's record as a starting quarterback in the regular season is dumbfounding. So it's really hard to pick against him, especially in the regular season. Grey Cup's not so much.
So the big names in Toronto, Ricky Ray is average against Calgary, averages just over 18 points. S.J. Green, just under 15. Armani Edwards has 12.5 points average against the rest of the week. Less than 5 against Calgary. But the big discrepancy here is James Wilder averaged 14.5 points last year, just over 3 against Calgary. He could start.
I think that was only in one game, though.
Okay, so he could start the season. Well, they shut him down in the Grey Cup, so they know what they're doing with James Wilder. He could have another rough game to start the season.
He very well could. He burst onto the scene last year. Nobody had really seen what this guy can do, and he's able to run roughshod over a lot of the teams in this league and put up big numbers. Everybody's got that film. Everybody can key in on certain things and make those adjustments and try to shut them down. And that's what we're seeing teams do early this year.
Who's winning?
Calgary.
I got the Stamps, too.
Yeah, they had 27.2 on the road. Toronto allows 26.9, and they only scored 24.3 at home. I mean, their points, so they should they were 9-19. They're not that great at home. They're not that great on the road. Calgary is just still the class of the league. I picked them to win the West, to finish first in the West. So I expect nothing to change here.
Real quickly, what's your CFL fantasy lineup look like?
I got Andrew Harris, William Powell, Darrell Walker, Darvin Adams, Drew Wolatarski in the Bombers D, and I'll give you one guess as to who my quarterback is. At $6,000.
Are you taking Strevler?
I am taking Chris Strevler.
Yeah!
I'm starting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Bombers this week out of my 7 players.
Whoa, you got the Winnipeg stack. I like that.
I've got $447 left.
So I think our lineups are quite different here. I got Jeremiah Mazzoli, Don Jackson, Andrew Harris, Jalen Saunders, Kamar Jordan, Naaman Roosevelt, and the Calgary defense.
How much money you got left over?
I have $90.
That's what you try to hit it right on the nose every time.
That's my weakness, man. I am so tempted to always get it as full as I can, but I think Roosevelt, he's always a target monster. Without Carter, they should be throwing to him even more, and I think Mazzoli and Saunders, they'll be a good pairing against the Eskimos in their secondary this week. So we're ready for another good week 2 of CFL football. Rate, review, subscribe on iTunes. Brazilian Ty will be sounding good again on Sunday, right?
Absolutely, because I'm going home Saturday night to get my digital recorder.
All right, we'll be back talking to you Monday morning. Enjoy week 2, my friends.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.